Magdeburg rights, or how to disenfranchise a people in their own land. The Magdeburg rights are hailed as one of the great legal achievements of medieval Central Europe. Supposedly a proud Germanic tradition, they supposedly laid the foundation for urban self-governance, prosperity, and legal order across the Holy Roman Empire and beyond. But look a little closer, and what do you find? Not some noble Germanic tradition, but yet another historical example of how the indigenous people of a land were subjugated under a system that catered to a select minority while leaving the majority to suffer under their own rulers. The so-called Germanic Law. The core of Magdeburg Law was urban autonomy, towns given self-rule under the emperor, rather than direct feudal control. This sounds reasonable, but then comes the kicker. Not everyone was subject to this system. Jews, who negotiated their own privileges with the ruling elites, were exempt from city jurisdiction entirely. Instead, they lived under their own legal framework, untouchable by the laws that governed the actual population. This is not a Germanic system. This is the textbook definition of a parallel society, where one group is free to operate outside the constraints imposed on everyone else. A true Germanic legal tradition would have ensured that everyone within a city was subject to the same laws, without exception. Instead, Magdeburg Law created a bizarre system where Germans had to abide by municipal law, while a privileged class lived by their own rules under imperial protection. Let's put that in plain terms. If a Germanic citizen in a Magdeburg Law city found himself in a dispute with a Jewish merchant, that case wouldn't be handled by the local courts. No, that was an imperial matter, meaning the emperor or his representatives had the final say, not the local people. Meanwhile, Jews could employ Christian servants, sell goods however they pleased, and most outrageously, they had the explicit legal right to withhold information about where they obtained their goods. In other words, they could buy or sell stolen property with zero obligation to reveal how they acquired it. A familiar pattern of historical revisionism. Now, anyone with a shred of common sense should ask, why the hell would Germanic people willingly accept a system where they had fewer rights in their own land? The answer is simple: they wouldn't. And yet, mainstream historical narratives would have us believe that these legal structures were some kind of natural development, as if people just woke up one day and thought, you know what would be great? If we had fewer rights than a foreign minority. This is the same playbook we've seen throughout history. A ruling elite grants special privileges to a select group, ensuring that this group remains financially and legally protected, often at the expense of the local population. Then, when tensions inevitably boil over, as they always do, the historical record frames the oppressed people as violent and irrational. Sound familiar? It should, because it's exactly what happened in Haiti. In Haiti, the French crown issued special letters patentes, granting Jewish plantation owners near total control over sugar production, using African slaves as their labor force. When the enslaved population finally revolted, rather than acknowledging the brutal conditions that led to the uprising, the narrative quickly shifted, painting the rebellion as savage and unjustified. And in the ultimate slap in the face, Haiti was later forced to pay reparations to France for the crime of freeing itself from oppression. The parallels to medieval Central Europe are undeniable. Germanic people were subject to laws that disadvantaged them, while a separate privileged group enjoyed autonomy and protection. Then, when these contradictions became unbearable, uprisings occurred, only for the historical record to portray them as irrational or malicious. The disenfranchisement of the Germanic people. Let's make one thing clear. No truly Germanic legal tradition would ever permit such blatant self-sabotage. The very idea that medieval Germans would eagerly accept a system that handed away legal authority over their own lands is absurd on its face. Yet this is precisely what the mainstream narrative insists we believe. And how does this all end? With the gradual erasure of Germanic legal traditions altogether. By the 15th century, under the influence of the Reichskammergericht and Roman law, Magdeburg rights, and by extension, what little remained of actual Germanic autonomy, were phased out. Once again, a foreign system, Roman law, took precedence over the laws that had governed the Germanic people for generations. Conclusion: who benefits? History is written by the victors, but more importantly, it is rewritten by those who seek to control the future. The Magdeburg rights are yet another example of how a legal system supposedly built for the benefit of Germanic people was in reality a tool for their subjugation. A system that allowed parallel societies to flourish while restricting the rights of the very people who founded the towns in the first place. So ask yourself, who benefited? It certainly wasn't the average Germanic citizen. And once you realize that, you start to see the same pattern play out across history, over and over again.